Some things come in and out, others live here rent-free forever, and that's the focus of this month's book special. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Dave Musson, at Dave Musson on Instagram, and this is a place where I talk to you about all things Stephen King. And this time we're into this month's book special, and a bit of an experimental one this, but basically I want to go through some of the things from Stephen King's books that just live rent-free inside my head, and I'll explain that a little more in a moment. But first, just a couple of things I wanted to draw your attention to. So if you check the description, you will find links at the bottom to the various ways in which you can support other things I do, whether that's the Stephen King quiz book, my newsletter, my fiction, or the Constant Writers podcast, or my Letterboxd profile. If you're willing to have a look at any of those, that would be very much appreciated. But it's totally up to you, and I'm just very happy to have you here more than anything. Okay, plugs over, let's get back to the special. So once a month I do a book special, and we're at that point of the calendar in this video. And as I said at the start, this is a bit of an experimental one. What I want to do is go through some Stephen King titles and just off the top of my head, give you the things from those books that just live rent-free inside my head. Now these might be big things, but more often than not, they're probably going to be deep cut, smaller things that just appear on page and have just stuck with me forever. So by nature of what's going to happen here, there are potential for spoilers ahead. So it's totally up to you, and what I might do is list the books that we go through in the description so you can make a judgment of whether or not you want to watch or how much you want to watch. And how am I going to pick the books? Well, I've got my trusty Losers Club mug, and it's full of bits of paper with the book names on, and I'm going to pick them out at random and just spout whatever comes into my head. I'm waiting for 19 of them, right? Because 19. So I think that's enough context. This might not work at all. Let me know what you think in the comments, and let me know your abiding memories of these books as well if you want to. But let's give it a go, shall we? Let's find 19 things from the world of Stephen King that live rent-free inside my head. Okay, start off. Insomnia. So, Insomnia, for me, it's when the dog dies. It's so painful. I mean, there's so many good images in Insomnia, particularly around the snipping of the lifelines, but it's when the dog gets hit and they come in and snip the dog's lifeline. Crushing. Okay, number 2. Bag of Bones. Bag of Bones. What jumps out at me, a Bag of Bones? I mean, the crazy dream where he's having sex with 3 different people, only one of whom is alive. That's going to stick in the memory, I think. Yeah, I think that one. I mean, it's an incredibly horny book anyway, so that magical 3-way definitely takes the biscuit here. Is take the biscuit the right phrase? I don't know, I'm tired. Number 3. It. Now, the obvious one would be the scene in the sewer with the Losers Club, right? But actually, for me, the one that really sticks in the memory is Pennywise on the frozen canal, Ben looking at him, and the balloons floating towards him in defiance of physics and science. That freaked me out the first time I read it, and still freaks me out while I think about it now. Number 4. Sleeping Beauties. I mean, there's not much in Sleeping Beauties, is there, really, that sticks in the memory. It's a long book, and not a lot of it sticks. I think the one image that does jump to mind is when we first learn of how some of the men are setting fire to the sleeping women, and they just kind of burn out in their alternative world. That's pretty disturbing. Particularly the scene with the homeless woman. Yeah, that one's pretty nasty. Number 5. The Talisman. I mean, not my favourite book. And as such, there's not loads jumping straight into my head. It doesn't exactly take up too much space in my head, but the Oatley Tunnel, and that's not a tunnel made of oat milk, that's a tunnel outside of a town called Oatley. That is a particularly tense and suspense-filled scene that is actually pretty good. We're at number 6. Dolores Claiborne. I mean, there's a lot of dark stuff in Dolores Claiborne, but the thing that really sticks in my head is the little game that the old woman is playing with Dolores in trying to shit the bed when she's not around. It's just so bizarre and shouldn't work in such a deep, serious story, and yet really does, and kind of helps showcase this relationship between the two women. So, yeah, shitting the bed. Number 7. Lisey's story. It's the can opener scene. That's the only answer. It's the can opener scene. And you don't even get a horrible, lurid description of it. It mainly happens off page. And it's a horrific, almost offensive attack on Lisey. And yet, it's haunting. Yeah, it's the can opener scene. Number 8. The Institute. To be honest, I don't remember much from the Institute, apart from the moment where, is it Luke, our lead character, wakes up in the room that he thinks is his room. Only it's not his room. Mainly because it reminds me of Wayne's World, where Garth says, that's Wayne's basement. Only that's not Wayne's basement. Number 9. The Shining. Again, an iconic book full of iconic moments. For me, it's the wasp nest coming back to life. The idea of that happening is just horribly terrifying. I mean, why Jack leaves a wasp nest next to Danny's bed? I guess because he had it as a kid himself. But yeah, you just know something bad is going to happen. And no, that just, shivery. No thank you. We're up to number 10. Tommyknockers. Tommyknockers, knocking at the door. 1, 2, 3, and then comes 4. I don't remember the rhyme. And I don't remember much about. There's not loads that really sticks to mind. Again, what can we say for Tommyknockers? Struggling. Not a lot lives in it. Oh, one thing that does. When they see Pennywise. Who was expecting that? Number 11. Ooh. Where did that go? Number 11. Oh, it's Holly. I mean, the moment we find out that the villains are cannibals. Brilliant. That's the best part of that book. And yeah, well, I told you there'd be spoilers, didn't I? But yeah, it's so well done. You kind of have an inkling of something weird happening, but then when you get confirmation that these people in their 80s are eating people, yeah, that's when you become invested in Holly, the book. So number 12, Misery. Misery. Well, it's difficult with ones like Misery because you've got the book and the film being so iconic, you can kind of mix the two together. So I'm definitely more inclined to think of things that are only in the book. And for Misery, it's when he gets the birthday cake with his own thumb in the top as a candle. I'm brutal. And by that point, you just think, he is never getting out. Number 13, The Dark Half. Dark Half. There are some good bits in The Dark Half. But I think for me, it's the operation scene at the start where we learn about Thad's consumed twin and we realise there are still body parts of that consumed twin in his brain, like an eyeball and teeth and stuff. It's so gross and it sets you up and hooks you in for the rest of the story. So number 14. Dome. Under the Dome. Again, a lot of stuff there. I think the simplicity for me of the supermarket riot that is so meticulously planned and planted by Big Jim and his cronies, and so easy to set off and yet so devastating in consequence. Yeah, it just shows how when you put a literal dome over a town and the wrong people are in power, they can just manipulate it completely at will. 15. You enjoying this? I don't know. It's experimental. And I'm being honest, I've got 1 day left before I need to get this live, so bit of a last minute idea. But hey, if it works for you, let me know in the comments. Equally, if it doesn't, let me know, and I won't do it again. Anyway, Needful Things. Needful Things. God, trying to narrow down one thing from Needful Things that sticks in the memory. I mean, there's so much carnage and there's so much chaos, but for me, it's actually Alan and Polly, and Alan with his magic thumbs managing to top her off through denim and underwear. He definitely does have magic hands. Okay, number 16. Fairy Tale. Literally no part of this book lives rent-free in my head. I do not like Fairy Tale. It is my least favourite Stephen King book. So I guess just generally the scenes between the main guy, who I kind of remember his name, and Mr. Bowditch. Yeah, the old guy and the young guy being friends for a bit. It's kind of it. But really, I've deleted that book. Where are we at? Number 17. Mr. Mercedes. I mean, it's the opening for me. Mr. Mercedes. It's one of the best openings King's ever written. That Mercedes ploughing into that queue of people, particularly running over the woman and her baby and the guy trying to protect them. Yeah, it's horrendous and scary and gets you really interested for the rest of the book. There's some other weird stuff that happens in the book, but for me it's immediately I think of that scene. So 18. Duma Key. Duma Key. I mean, again, there's lots of dark stuff that happens in Duma Key. There's a real... I like the atmosphere throughout, like the sound of the shells under the house and the weird stuff with the paintings. But I think, if anything, for me, the thing that sticks in my head is Edgar, day by day, getting a little bit closer to meeting Wyman for the first time, walking along the beach. There's like a real sense of achievement, of progression, and of owning that pain, which... yeah, I just really like. And it's King's meditation on pain and recovery. And you really get a sense of that in those scenes. So last one. Cujo. Easy one, Cujo. It's Steve Kemp jizzing over the bed in his act of vandalism, or when his act of vandalism gets him so turned on that he has to jizz over the bed of the woman he's been sleeping with. I mean, why? Why? And yet also, yeah, it's literally the first thing I think of in Cujo. Which, considering that's a book about a rabid dog ripping people to shreds, that's quite an achievement. Okay, there we go. We've gone through the Losers Club mug and picked out 19 books. There are plenty more in there, but I don't know, did that work? Did it not work? Let me know in the comments, and let me know from those books that we've covered here, what are the big memories, what are the big things that live rent-free in your heads? Thanks for watching this one. Apologies if it was a bit less interesting than the usual ones, but hey, you win some, you lose some. Do check out the description for links to the Stephen King quiz book that I wrote, to my newsletter, to my fiction, to the Constant Writers podcast, and to my Letterboxd profile. And, well, do come back soon, because we'll be back on the road towards covering movies adaptations, and we're still in the early 90s, which means we've got some interesting stuff to cover. I'll see you then.